You've probably noticed that thanks to the internet, there's been a major increase in conspiracy theories. Flat Earth is the final boss of conspiracy theories. It is a conspiracy theory so powerful that it makes all others look boring and tame by comparison. But what you might not know is that the modern Flat Earth movement can be traced directly back to one guy, a very strange guy named Samuel Rowbotham. It is a common misconception that in the past, most people believed the Earth was flat. The earliest writing about a spherical Earth dates all the way back to the 5th century BC. The ancient Greeks were not only aware that the Earth was a sphere, but they were good enough at math to figure out the circumference pretty accurately. Continuing on through the Middle Ages, virtually all educated Europeans knew that the Earth was a ball. The heyday of Flat Earth would come much later. Flat Earth was not a thing back in medieval times, when scholars thought that leeches were a good cure for anxiety. Flat Earth was most popular and most relevant in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, and this was in large part due to one Samuel Rowbotham. Samuel Burley Rowbotham was born in 1816 in London. In 1849, he decided to publish a 16-page pamphlet titled Zetetic Astronomy, Earth, Not a Globe. He published it under the pseudonym Parallax. Parallax is a word used to describe how the position of something can look different based on where you're looking at it from. So by using this pen name, Rowbotham was basically asking readers to look at the Earth in a whole new way. An incorrect way, but a new way nonetheless. It's also possible that he wasn't totally sure that this whole flat Earth thing was going to work out yet, so maybe he wasn't ready to attach his real name to something this wild. In 1865, he would expand the pamphlet into a full book. Rowbotham's Zetetic Astronomy painted a very different picture of the Earth from the one that actual science does. He wrote that Earth was not a sphere, but a flat disk. At the center of this flat disk is the North Pole. If you're worried about accidentally falling off this disk, you don't have to freak out. Not because the Earth is actually round, but because, according to Rowbotham, there's a wall of ice along the perimeter. This ice wall has become something of a sticking point among modern flat earthers. When questioned about its existence, they will typically say something along the lines of, "Oh, the government won't let you visit it." If you're starting to ask yourself what is going on with the Sun and the other planets under this model, don't worry. Rowbotham had figured this out as well. He wrote that the Sun and Moon were in fact much closer than most scientists would have you believe. According to him, they were only 3,000 miles above the Earth. The rest of the universe, which he simply referred to as the cosmos, was a mere 100 miles above that. This certainly would have made the moon landing much easier, since this would make the moon about as far away from Earth as LA is from New York. Rowbotham also published a leaflet called The Inconsistency of Modern Astronomy and Its Opposition to the Scriptures, in which he tried to bring the Bible into this whole thing as well. He wrote, "The Bible, alongside our senses, supported the idea that the Earth was flat and immovable, and this essential truth should not be set aside for a system based solely on human conjecture." So, if you disagreed with him, not only were you going against your own empirical senses, but you were going against God himself. The scientific community of the day was not too impressed by this. Rowbotham did not begin his career as a scientist at all. He started off as an organizer for an Owenite community in eastern England. The Owenites were a utopian socialist group, which is something that was gaining traction at the time, but not that much traction. Much like today, the flat earthers of yesteryear usually had fringe political beliefs as well as fringe scientific beliefs. The two seem to be inextricably bound together. It was during this time as an Owenite that Rowbotham developed his flat Earth views. He became convinced that the Earth cannot be spherical because of the Bedford level experiments. These experiments were a series of observations that he carried out along a certain stretch of the old Bedford River. Rowbotham essentially tried to prove that the Earth was flat by showing that a certain section of this river was flat. He would argue that if the Earth was really a sphere, like most people claimed, then a curve should be detectable. Rowbotham, confident that he was really onto something here, began to lecture on flat Earth and his experiments around England. Initially, he was not great at this. He once ran away from a lecture in Blackburn when he was asked to explain why the hulls of ships disappear before their masts when they sail out to sea. Unable to provide a good answer, he chose to instead physically leave the building. However, as he continued to lecture, his skills improved. As he got better, it was said that he became a quick-witted and sharp debater. People liked hearing him speak so much that he could charge 6 pence a lecture. Most scientists at the time were content to just ignore Rowbotham, but eventually some of them got tired of this guy going around and saying the Earth was flat. Rowbotham was accused of avoiding them and their pesky tests, so in 1864, he decided to meet them head-on. Rowbotham and the more established scientists had a challenge in a town called Plymouth. Rowbotham's opponent said, due to the curvature of the Earth, only the lantern of the Eddystone Lighthouse would be visible from where they were on the beach with their telescope. It was 14 miles out to sea. Rowbotham's opponents were even more right than they had anticipated, and only half the lantern was visible. But this didn't stop Rowbotham, who claimed that they were still wrong. He was apparently so convincing in person that many people left this event thinking he was in the right, and that the Earth had in fact been flat all along. Rowbotham may not have been a brilliant scientist, but it's possible that he was a brilliant public speaker. Rowbotham's personal life was a turbulent one. In 1861, he got married for the third time to a 15-year-old girl. This was much less unusual in 1861 than it would be today, but it was odd even for the time, especially considering that he was 46. They moved to London and had 15 children, only 4 of whom survived. Tragic, but again, less unusual for that time period. Just as he was not the best scientist, he may not have been the best parent. He was named in numerous wrongful death cases, including a death by misadventure for accidentally poisoning one of his own children. Other wrongful deaths that were attributed to him had to do with his medical practice. If Rowbotham was unqualified to be an astronomer, he was even less qualified to be a doctor. He sold so-called cures made from phosphorus that he claimed would prolong your life and cured just about every disease imaginable. He was, of course, a complete quack. Probably in order to avoid legal recourse, he went under the name Dr. Samuel Burley. He made more money as a fake doctor than he did as an astronomer and was said to live in a beautiful 12-room house. At no point in time did he have a real medical degree, but he did have a number of patents for different inventions. For instance, he held the patent for a life-preserving cylindrical railway carriage. His official profession changed somewhat frequently. At different times, he claimed to be a chemist, physician, journalist, and even a soap boiler. Soap boiling, aka making soap, probably would have been the thing he was best suited for. In between Rowbotham and the internet, his flat Earth ideas were kept alive by a variety of followers inspired by him. One of them, John Hampton, was known for getting into public debates that often escalated into heated shouting matches. A bet he had with a famous scientist of his day named Alfred Russel Wallace devolved into a series of lawsuits that eventually landed Hampton in prison for libel. This is the glorious heritage of the Flat Earth movement. Rowbotham was an interesting man, and maybe he was a man born at the wrong time. Just imagine how much more money he could have made as a conspiracy theorist and a grifter if he had access to the internet. For more videos on the most amazing forgotten parts of our history, be sure to subscribe to the Intrigued Mind channel, like the video, and leave your suggestions in the comments below.